Hi everyone, Jemmillion here, and I am here with Alex Valle coming to you all the way from California. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, well, thank you for being willing to come on. So, I just wanted to start off with asking you a few questions about yourself. Basic get to know questions like, you know, how old were you when you started playing fighting games, and what inspired you to become a part of the fighting game community?
Wow, how old was I? Let's see here. I was, let's see, Street Fighter 2, 1991, right? So let's see here. I was about 13. Um, and I mean, Street Fighter 2 was my first competitive fighting game, but I mean, I was old enough to remember playing Street Fighter 1, and nobody really played that game as a two-player game. Like they always just play computer. You never really see two people playing it ever. Or at least if you recall playing that one. Um, so damn. Anyways, so moving on to 92 is like I mean, people are trying to figure out like what this game is and there was actually people playing against each other, so it was like that was all brand new stuff. And I was used to, playing a bunch of other games that didn't require playing somebody next to you. It was just beating the high score, getting the fancy like ending credits of something, and that was it, right? But some sports games, of course, you could play together, but I mean that got kind of boring. I wanted to like beat people up, and Street Fighter was the one.
Right.
And I got really addicted. Just when I went, you just get that instant like gratification, like when you beat somebody in like 2 minutes, and they have to go to the change machine and get some more money out. I mean, that was it. That was a wrap. I'm like, yeah, dude, this is I love this shit. So I gotta come back to this, and I gotta make sure that like I spend the least amount of money. And I mean, I was just inspired to get better, like just to stay up afloat. I mean, it was when you find something that you truly love, right?
Hmm.
You naturally want to get good at it. You want to get better. You're curious, right? So that was me, and a bunch of other players too. Like they just love coming back and for their favorite games. So that's what really got me into the scene. Just the basically just beating people up and then people watching me do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me the pool that fighting games have. And it's definitely only for like a select amount of people. Not everybody. Some people look at fighting games like, why do you like beating other people up? I'm like, well, I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's not like you're doing it in real life, so it's kind of like a way to get away with beating up other people. Um, but I was gonna say that when I was a little girl, I had an arcade in a movie theater around the corner from me, and they had a Tekken arcade cabinet. And I probably sometimes went to the movie theater just to play uh, Tekken, not even to see a movie. And I used to think I was the best at it. You know when you're like 11 years old, you're like, yeah. And I was picking Christy, who's like the scrubbiest, like one of the scrubbiest characters in Tekken, and I would just dominate my friends with it. And most of my friends, at the time, they were girls, and they were like, come race these race cars with me. And I'm like, no, you know what, I'll do that if you can beat me at Tekken. And I and I used to like challenge them to that and beat them. And then it was so sad they took it out. But then I remember when I found out about the fighting game community, and I finally saved up enough money. I got a PS3 and I bought all these fighting games, and I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm gonna be the best. I was not as good as I thought I was. In fact, I was quite terrible. So, I really worked hard to get better. But I mean, it's really sad what's actually happening to arcades. I was just at Disney Quest
Mhm.
over the weekend, and you were talking about, going to get more quarters and putting it in, to challenge people. And it's not like that anymore. They had a bunch of old arcade cabinets there. And in fact, Disney Quest is actually going to be closing soon, which is really sad. And there were so little people actually playing the fighting games. And, you go to try to challenge them, but they're like little kids. So I don't want to, like, you know what I mean? But I wish that, like, I wish there was something that we could do to try to keep the arcade scene alive. I mean, do you still have arcades out there in California that are popular, or is it the same thing?
We have just like a few kind of you know I guess rundown arcades now. Like all the, I mean, we have James games. I mean, they have some of the classics there, but none of them support any of the latest games. Like it's kind of pointless now to just go to the arcade because they're not like round one. Round one has access to like the Nessica system, right? So you can get like the latest fighting games like from the Blaze Blue series and whatnot.
Right.
And they get imports from Japan. Regular American arcades, they're not going to have the budget to do that. So they have to improvise and they start putting consoles in there. But like I already saw this coming, like back when I teamed up with Watson at Super Arcade, like, that was gonna be the future. I'm like, it's better that we do this model to kind of revive the arcade scene, and go from there,
Right.
right? So, but like, even with both of our visions combined, he held on more to the grassroots arcade style and that business model, and then I kind of like saw the what's next in the next 5 years. So I needed a way to like uh, you know get people prepared for the modern age arcade, which I think is Wednesday Night Fights. And it's you don't see any arcade cabinets there. I mean, it looks like a LAN center, but the atmosphere isn't. It's just community driven,
Mhm.
right? People want to be there. It's not like if nobody's forcing them to go, right? It's a hangout. It's bringing back everything that made you want to go to the arcade in the first place. Is this type of event? Um, and it's kind of sad, but to be honest, I would be lying to you if I'd say that I'm pretty over it. Like
Yeah.
I'm pretty over it. Like the owners should already know that the consoles and the PCs, that's what everybody plays on now. Is they just have to be very creative in how to get the business in. So
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I guess then if they're gonna do that though, I feel like then they should start. I know they already are starting to work on bringing like older and classic games to the more modern consoles, but I think if that's the case, then they should continue to work on that since you kind of most of the time can only get a lot of those classic games on the actual arcade cabinets. So I guess I would like to see more of that pull over. But you brought up Wednesday Night Fights, which is a great segment into the next question I wanted to ask you about, which was level up. Um, so I wanted to ask, when did you decide to start level up, and what are your main goals with
ah
that?
okay.
With that.
Uh I decided to start level up with a group of friends, right? That shared the same passion as I did, right? Like it's I worked many jobs, and like I've been a manager and sales manager for Coca-Cola. I've trained teams. I used to do real estate. I used to do a lot of types of sales jobs, right? So I've kind of dealt with people. I'm a people person, and
Mm-hmm.
I can tell like when somebody's you can't bullshit a bullshitter is the most
No.
that is the best line, right? It's true. So when Street Fighter 4 came out, SoCal sucked ass at Street Fighter 4. I'm like, I can't believe what happened to our scene because before Street Fighter 4, it was just a SoCal. Man, we won every single tournament there is. Like Justin Wong won like most of those the Marvel tournaments, but anytime like John Choi and I and Mike went out to actually play a Street Fighter game, nobody had a chance. Like it was just for free for any Street Fighter game. And as Street Fighter 4 comes out, some of the OGs aren't playing anymore. We have a bunch of the new kids playing, right? They're just getting it destroyed. So I'm like, all right, I need to do something about the scene. We're pretty ass. I never really hosted tournaments at all. I mean, like 2009, right? I'm like, okay, Street
Mhm.
Fighter 4 is coming out, console finally in February. Starting trying to invite some people over, but only a couple came. Like they just people were very like shy and kind of like, oh, I don't know about going to like Alex's house and trying to play. And it's just like I,
Yeah.
I get it, right? I get it. I'm like, all right. Um, and we eventually just a friend of mine offered his place, and we kind of outgrew that. Like got some people over there, 15, 20 people in an apartment. That's actually kind of pushing it already. So, but then a good close friend of mine from like back in the arcade days offered his garage, and his name is Shiggle BMX. And when I kind of he told me like, hey, let's just use my garage. I can fit like probably 40 people or something there. I'm like, for sure. Like, yeah. And then I started to formalize what I wanted to do. Like at first it was just a gathering, right? And hey, just come over, we'll just play games, casual games, right? But once we hit my friend's garage, we I posted everywhere. I'm like, hey, I want to like actually sit down with you guys and kind of give you guys like a history lesson. I want to know who you guys are. Like, why are you playing this game? I'm pretty much kind of like instructor mode status. Like, I'm getting impatient because everybody still sucks, right? And Gutex was there, and like he was helping me out, like kind of like just because he's a veteran too. He was really good in Third Strike. And some of the good players from like Arcade Infinity, one of the arcade that closed a while ago that has Street Fighter 4 arcade. Some of those guys were there, but like the new guys, and uh, it wasn't until then is when like my wow, back in Southern Hills Golfland days, Jimmy Wynn, which is a co-founder of Level Up, Frank Reyes, AJ Papa at the time when he was still with us, um, they were really interested and they kind of like put me aside, especially Jimmy. He goes, hey man, I haven't seen you for a while. I haven't seen Jimmy in years, right? And he was the guy who brought like a camcorder in the 90s to like take footage of games. And like I remember one time I was in a tournament back in the 90s, right? And I see a tripod and a camera there. I'm like, "Hey man, what are you doing, dude? Are you kind of like filming or what's the deal?" Like I'm just like I'm not a tech guy. Even back then I was like kind of like shooting the shit with him. And he goes, "Nah, man. It's direct feed." I'm like, "What?" So yeah, he was like kind of running the tournaments that I used to play in back then, right? Like
Mhm.
almost 15 years ago, okay? And fast forward to 2009, he goes, "Hey, I really love what you're doing here, man. You're kind of revitalizing the whole competitive spirit in SoCal, because it's all super fragmented. There's not much leadership going on, and so you're kind of like taking the helm, right?" And he offered to help, like to put the pieces together. Like again, I'm not the technical guy. He is, right? And I can't. Companies cannot function without like a tech specialist.
Right.
And I'm more of like the business, the public relations, which it's funny because we still do the same stuff now, but we wear many hats in a company. Anyways, uh, Frank Reyes, he knows all about the streaming tech, like what is needed for a stream. So we put pretty much Voltron together to make this to start up Level Up because we had meetings after meetings like, hey, what are we gonna do with this? Like, are we just gonna get people to play or what's going on? I'm like, all right, I want to kind of level up the community. So we're like, got that term, level up the community. Why don't we just call ourselves like level? And there was like we had our first Wednesday night fights as level up. I believe it was 2010. Um,
Mhm.
in Shiggle BMX's house, and uh, we had Frank Reyes and AJ Papa on the stream decks. They were doing the stream. We didn't really have any commentators yet. I don't think. Not James Chen and Ultra David weren't like they were going to these sessions, but like Nobody knew when to kind of like pick up the mic yet. I was kind of just instructing people, and then there would just be footage. So that I mean, that's how like we started out, and where what do we want to do? So Level Up has evolved. If you guys, I don't know if you guys have been following us, is we're on our 6th year right now. So I mean, Wednesday Night Fights is on its 6th year too, because that is our flagship event that we started. Like we test everything that we do off of Wednesday Night Fights. So like streaming capabilities, new event practices, admissions, promotions, everything that we do at Wednesday Night Fights, because it's a weekly thing, right? We can
Mhm.
get feedback from the community, and then we can implement it to any client-based events, trade shows, um, SCRs. We get plenty of good feedback, so we can perfect our craft. And 2010, 2011, we were still kind of in the limbo stage. We just knew that we had to build the brand and kind of build an audience, right? And
Mhm.
getting viewership and start talking about how to put these pieces together and then put it in a business plan, right? Like, what is our business plan? What is our actual goals? Because nobody really on startups. That's like the hardest thing. Like business plans change a lot, and
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say like we knew what we wanted to do. Like we didn't. We just kind of winged it for a bit, and I think Jimmy was the one that kind of steered us in the right place. Like he was really frustrated with us. He was really really, especially with me, because like it's a good idea, but the execution wasn't there, and he's all about execution, right? He's man, like I wish you would have do this better and that better, and you got to shape up, because I still had a lot of growing up to do too. I mean, as much as this is a fighting game community, um, I had to kind of like it's not like change who I am, but be better at it, right?
Right.
That
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily make say like I have to kind of like just cut off the vulgarity and all that stuff at FGC. It's just I gotta be more inclusive to what like all the events that we have, because it's gonna bite us in the ass if we don't do it right. And once we figured out like an actual good business plan, which is provide broadcasting and event services, right? That's the core. We do streaming. We can create an event from scratch, right? We have access to venues. We got a huge network of publishers and developers, sponsors, so we can, you know, help you with whatever promotions you need, right? So that's just like a marketing agency, kind of,
Right.
and that's pretty much what we do now. I mean, we have Jimmy has kind of evolved the business to higher end production to do
Mhm.
the show events, right? So he's definitely the leader in that. I'm not at that level, but I can't do a production like Wednesday Night Fights and do it like West Coast Warzone or a Texas Showdown. I can do it that level. But if you ever see stuff that he does, it's night and day of like how much how detailed he is when he does a production. But yeah, I mean that's the basis of what we do. And moving forward, we have now like the Vanguard events, SCR is coming. Actually, we're gonna drop some big news pretty soon. So a lot of stuff is coming, a lot. So it's just and one of the things that sucks about this is that I have to be tight-lipped about everything, and I'm smiling because I just can't wait till I announce it. So
Well, I'm sure the viewers and everybody else can't wait for your exciting news either. You definitely do a lot of great work. I think, it's funny. One of the things you were talking about was starting out in the community and wanting to do everything, but still having so much to learn. And I remember when I was starting off, I wanted to go big right away. And you were one of the people that kind of reminded me that I needed to take it one step at a time. And I think, as you put it, get all your ducks in a row first. So that's definitely some advice that I think is really good for anybody that's watching right now. It's okay if you don't accomplish your goals right away.
mhm.
Don't go too big right away because Alex. No, I'm serious though because Alex Valle is a very good example of, they've been doing it for 6 years and now he has all this great things that is going on and he's doing amazing things to the community. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you for the kind words. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. So I'm gonna take a moment here to go into some different games that are
Okay.
either out already and very popular or are going to be out soon. So the
Sure.
first topic I want to bring up is Street Fighter V. So as I'm sure you already know, Street Fighter V had a little bit of a rough start and a launch. You're laughing, so I know you know exactly what I'm talking about.
You're being modest here.
I'm trying to be nice.
I know.
Regardless of that, obviously they've been trying to do damage control, and we're finally tomorrow gonna get quote unquote the rest of the game. We're gonna get the story mode, and they're even throwing in two DLC characters instead of one. Ibuki and Balrog, and they even gave us teasers for Yuri and Urian that are coming up. So my question to you is, do you think Capcom is going to be able to make a comeback and get on back on track?
Oh,
Where the game is concerned at least.
interesting question. So Street Fighter 4, that was an amazing release. I remember it like it was yesterday. Like I went to their launch party, um, and they had a huge like just celebration of the comeback of Street Fighter, and I couldn't wait to come home and play it, which I did. Like right after the party, I went home and I played that. I'm happy. I can play online. I have a lounge. I have an arcade mode, but I didn't really play arcade mode. I had things to play with, right?
Right.
And uh, the game didn't really have, I guess, detrimental issues, right? Like no showstoppers. Of course, the game had its flaws, but I mean, you go fast forward to Street Fighter Five. Wow. So there's no lobbies, right? You can't even play online. It's just for the first week. Um, like a lot of functionality issues with the game, and it's very limited. It has very short uh, story, I guess, story modes for
Hmm.
each character. So yeah, I could see like, man, it was a huge. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it, man. It was pretty disastrous for compared to Street Fighter 4. It was like it's night and day, right? It's like what the hell, what happened?
Right.
And we're all sad about that. We're sad and we're angry, um, but that's outside the core game, right? I am pretty old school, as you can tell, and um, I've played many, many, many Street Fighters, right? And from like when they started, and I'm just excited to play a new Street Fighter and try to figure it out. And you know, I it doesn't really take a lot to uh, impress me because I know that creating a fighting game is just really hard. Balance wise, appealing characters, et cetera, et cetera, right? Like the graphics are great. I like the models. I actually like the models here better than Street Fighter 4. Um, but like the core gameplay, right? It's a little closer to home to me on this one.
Hmm.
So, Capcom has the hardcore audience already, right? And as long as that core gameplay is decent, they're in the right direction, right? Because everything else can be fixed. Um, and I, start we'll be able to see that with um, tomorrow with the story mode, right? Story mode, and they're gonna add two new characters, and things are being cleaned up a bit, but the core gameplay is still going to be relatively the same, right? I'll get into the whole eight frames and all the other shit later because I know everybody wants to hear that stuff. But
Yeah.
uh, we live in, yeah, we're way deep into the digital age now. They can make a lot of fixes, right? But I
Right.
think their priority is getting back the casual audience first, because I know they lost a lot of them, right? So their
Yes,
focus is to,
definitely.
yeah, their focus is to get the casual audience back so they can kind of work their way into like the hardcore mechanics, right? So it's very clever. Their strategy this time is pretty clever, because story mode is not going to be enough to get the hardcore people happy again, because hardcore people now are super pissed. They're really, really, really upset. You know, one of the characters have been delayed, right? No trailer for Alex. Like the bread and butter to please the hardcore audience, just like me, it just takes one little trailer. He's coming out, cool. I'm excited again, right? Or even a
Right.
screenshot, we're good. But we didn't even get any of that for a while with Alex. I mean, Guile was released on time, and they released a trailer like a week earlier than we were expecting. Um, but this last big announcement for E3, story mode and the two characters that are coming out, so they actually appeased the fans, and they gave a teaser for Jury and Urian, and that sealed the deal. You can see the entire community is cheesing right now compared to how they felt 2 weeks ago. Yes, they could definitely turn this around. Just and it's not. They didn't really do much. Okay, they didn't really do much to make us cheese. Imagine when they actually go all in to make us happy. That's when it's.
Right.
And I think that's gonna happen in 2017. I think right now they're just kind of like polishing up the game, or and getting the initial fixes out the way. 2017, I think is gonna be like, damn, we're gonna have the next round of new characters. They're definitely, yeah. I can tell you that they're gonna turn this around easily, and they still have more announcements to come. So, and I'm smiling because I kind of know a few of them, but don't worry, can't
Oh
say.
well, that's not fair.
No, I mean it's obvious what they are, but they kind of already announced it. I just Nobody really talks about it right now. So
Well, okay. Now that I want to ask you what for hints on what it is. Yeah, no, I'm definitely actually once I'm done with this, I plan on while I'm uploading this to YouTube, downloading the file for the story mode. So I'm definitely excited that it's coming out on a Friday. So then after work, I can spend the rest of the night playing it. But yeah, the one thing you mentioned was about the actual core play, and this game is actually the most balanced that any of the Street Fighters have ever been, character and play wise. So it's kind of interesting to see how competitively it's faring pretty well. But outside of that, not so much. However, I have seen at tournaments the numbers are kind of dwindling down a little bit with Street Fighter 5. So I'm hoping that's not a trend and it picks back up. But you said later you were going to talk about those 8 frames of lag. So I'm gonna
ah,
and so now I'm gonna bring that up again for you
okay,
to talk about.
sure. I really think the community doesn't even know how to play Street Fighter properly yet. And I can say that with much confidence because uh, they're blaming stuff they've never been like they've never been used to before. Uh, I'm a veteran player. Justin's a veteran player. Ricky's a veteran player. We adapt to like everything, right? If there's something in the game that does not allow us to play properly, we're gonna tell you, right?
Right.
So this whole 8 frame thing, yeah, it sucks. It should not be in there. Um, for PS4 is 8 frames. For PC is 5 frames, by the way. And I think it should at least be 5 or 4 frames for this game. I mean, I think that they're intended it to be around there, but that's my opinion. But anyways, um, we can adapt to the lag a bit. I'm not saying it should be standard, but everybody has to deal with it right now, right? Everybody has to deal with it. Um, and they're constantly screaming about it. Oh, this A-frame, it shouldn't be this way. I'm like, okay, cool. You know what? I'm with you guys. Let's, say next week we're at 3 frames. We're at Street Fighter 4 type of input latency. Do you really think you're gonna do that much better than us?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
No, I mean that's a good point. I mean,
I mean that, and then I don't really care how many more excuses they have to make, because it's not that, it's them. Like, they don't know how to play the game properly, because then they start talking about, oh, the jabs are too good, I can't jump in because you're too scrubby. You're not supposed to jump all the time. Street Fighter is meant to play strong neutral. You can only jump when you have a good read. It's kind of like throwing fireballs. You can only throw fireballs when you have a good read, or you're going to get jumped on. You can't always resort to playing stupid. You're playing versus people that are really defensive, and you got to play a good ground game. So they're blaming everything they possibly can except themselves. So they don't even know what they want. Like, if you like, we can give them a saying quote perfect game, 3 frame input latency. Even the jabs aren't really strong. You can just give them the perfect game. Who do you think is still gonna dominate? Right?
right.
It's come on. Like, tell me, give me a better reason than simple things that you can adapt to like really blame the game. Right? Give me like, if you can't, I don't know, if a character was super overpowered right now, like, we would really see like eight of the same, three of the same, or even five of the same. It's not Third Strike, it's not Super Turbo. It's not like a lot of those games. You can totally tell there's like super fucking OP characters. But this one, Chun-Li is the only one that comes to mind that makes people play very. They you really can't attack her properly. She just has tools. Can't jump in on her. Great ground game, but that's where it ends. And then, I mean, you don't really see Chun-Li's winning every tournament. Is balance. I think the balance is pretty fair. Um, minus a. Yeah, Zangief is still good. It's like we're still, the game's only 3 or 4 months old,
Yeah.
right? And nobody knows how to play this game yet. They assume they can because they've seen videos. But they don't play. They're not out there with us, right? They're not there, dissecting the game like we are. So we're seeing stuff months in advance, and we don't want to be assholes and say, hey, you guys just suck, and guys just got to get better. I mean, I tried that so many times. So now I just like, okay, look, just I stream sometimes, just watch what I do and have an open mind and kind of go in the lab and kind of do what I do, or take bits and pieces and move forward. Because everybody does in training mode that aren't really dedicated as us, they'll go in there and then they see one thing that they can't beat and they'll just like, all right, I can't, this game sucks. Like that is the mindset of today's fighting game players. Like, if they can't beat one direct strat, they just like, they start saying the game is ass, and that's not what fighting games is about. Like, if there's one, if it comes to that, try to even play the same character. I've done that.
Right.
I've, when I've actually had time and I didn't understand how to beat a character, I picked that character just to
Mhm.
see like what the real weaknesses are when I play as that character. But nobody wants to do the work, so you know, hide behind the keyboard and say the game sucks without even doing anything about it.
Well, and you know what? I think that is actually one of the issues right now. So I was just actually talking about this with somebody at CEO this past weekend about the fact that one of the issues I think for some of the players is that a lot of people are saying, "Oh, the game's not balanced." Well, the game, as you said, it is actually fairly balanced, and I think that that's something we're also not used to with all the struggles with balancing out characters in Street Fighter 4. So characters like Zangief, for example, people are like, well, Zangief's horrible now. Well, not necessarily. So, because he might have been a little bit on a higher level, especially with his green hands. Well, then they took green hands away in the process of trying to balance him out. now they're not used to spamming as many moves anymore. So they're like, okay, now I actually have to, essentially play Zangief. And I feel like when you have setups with like, let's say green hands and you're working out, then all of a sudden you don't have that anymore. It is going to be a little bit more difficult. So I think on one hand, it's just they got used to the levels of where their characters are balanced at. And then it all changed and it all became equal. And it all, like, that kind of just, for some players, it was a really great thing. All of a sudden, you saw them placing high, and they were actually never placing like that before. And other players, not so much. And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
they were kind of placing a little bit lower. And for some people, it was a great comeback. And you saw some players who never, like I said, before in their life placed, who are now even placing in local tournaments and are getting looked at by sponsors. And it's a great thing. But you're right. I think it's just one of those things where over time, hopefully, players will be able to do what you said, actually start trying to learn the game and not give up so quickly just because they can't beat, five people in a row online. And I always encourage people to actually go to local tournaments and not judge how good of a player you are by playing people online, because people love to spam
Yeah.
online every chance they can get. I think, when I was playing the beta for Street Fighter 5, someone used a lag switch on me. And I have that match recorded, and I was like, really? Like a lag switch? It's a beta. Like, do you need, like, you meet a lot of scrubby people online. So I would, definitely take Alex's advice and, really try to learn the game. And no, I'm serious, so stop laughing. don't give up just because you lose a match or a couple of them. Don't give up, even if you lose at a tournament. I met somebody recently that lost at a major and was like, I think I'm done. And I was like, why? Take it as a learning experience. Where did you go wrong? Why did you lose? Okay, then work on fixing that for next time. Don't give up. Always keep moving forward and up, just like I am with the next question. So, the next game I want to talk about is King of Fighters 14.
Oh, okay.
So, which I did get a chance to play last weekend, and it's so cool. I love it. But when it first was announced and they first showed the video, it was similar content to Street Fighter 5, but not as much. A lot of people were actually talking negatively about it. It didn't look as good. It was kind of choppy. The graphics kind of looked worse than the PS2 3D
Yeah.
version that had come out, KOF 2006, and it really wasn't looking hopeful at first. But I think a lot of people can agree that SNK and Atlas definitely proved themselves over the last couple months, because every time they released a new video, the graphics and the gameplay were even better than it was before. And as somebody who got to play the game at CEO last weekend, I can attest that it looks really good and it feels really good. And that's not even the final version yet. So I wanted to ask you, do you think that this could be the year for SNK and Atlas to actually make their mark in the FGC? You definitely have a lot of those KOF fans that remain dedicated, but it's never really been on, say, the level of Street Fighter 5 or not Street Fighter 5, but Street Fighter in general, or Tekken, or, Marvel. It hasn't, or even Mortal Kombat. So I wanted to know your opinion on whether or not you think this might be the year for SNK to kind of leave a big impression with the scene.
Oh, it's a pretty loaded question. So, uh, King of Fighters, it's okay. It's a really it was a really jumpy start with their promotions. You're right. Like it looked like a PS2 title. Uh, and when I first saw it at the PlayStation Experience, it's one of those games that it looks better in person than in screenshots.
Oh, definitely.
And yeah, you can tell from CEO, right?
I
And
can, yeah.
yeah, so people saw. I think it was on their end. They had to rush out some content, right? But their approval process to do so is pretty strenuous. Like they're very picky on what goes out there. So I think they just didn't want to release any of like the later footage, even though they had it. So they just put out like super alpha versions of what they had because come on, they just started pumping out info like early, what, December last year,
No, yeah, that is true. It was very
right?
quick. It was like no one had any idea. Like
Yeah,
Tekken has been going on for like the last like 2 years, and like King of Fighters is like, here we go, we're coming out this summer.
yeah. So yeah, they're constantly upgrading the graphics and making it smoother and so it can play like like an actual King of Fighter game. Um, to make their mark this year would kind of be stretching it, in my opinion. I think they have to worry about just launching this game and making sure that it plays right. I mean, they're making the huge jump from 2D to traditional 2D to like 2.5D or whatever it is right now. All right, so and they have the Street Fighter 4 battle designer on the game, so that brings a little bit more confidence that the um, the engine is gonna run smooth, right? And like they'll still have a lot of um, a lot of execution funsies in the game. So the game's got to be fun first, right? Um, and if it is fun throughout the year, they get that feedback. 2017, again, digital age, they can add more to it. So to make their mark this year, I don't think it's that's should be their priority. Their priority is should just be the game should be fun,
Right.
right? The getting new players to play it, right? Get that audience to like the King of Fighters franchise again, right? And they do that first. 2017 is where they can make their mark.
Well,
Like,
I guess that's kind of what I meant. I meant like year like from like let's say when it comes out in August to like the following August, like kind of like a full year from that moment. Like, do you
yeah,
think over the course of the first year of the game being out that it's going to kind of rise up and it's going to become bigger than it's ever been so far in the scene, especially with the transition, of course, into esports where there's a lot more notice on the games that are coming out.
yeah. I like to think that fighting games have about 2 to 3 months of the honeymoon stage before like it kind of drops off. Like other people just are bored of it by then, or like they're moving on to something else. They can't beat people or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And I like to take the first 3 months as the most important to get as many people to play it. It's one of the reasons why, like, Wednesday Night Fights, we promote whatever new game that comes out. We give them a chance. We like literally let the community decide if they really want to play it. Like, we'll have a spot for them. Okay.
Hmm.
And people don't think about these things. They think about, oh, like, I wonder what the pot bonus is. I wonder like what, gimme, gimme, gimme. It's like they're thinking, what can I get out of it first before like what can you actually do for the community,
Yeah.
right? A lot of players nowadays were older, right? You've already seen 7 years of Street Fighter 4 and how that game was promoted throughout tournaments, pot bonuses, and I mean, they're great incentives for like the 1%. But what does that really do for everybody else? Like we really need to, if we really like the game, we got to constantly support it at events that like your own are throwing. Like you're bringing in excitement, you're getting more people because when that happens and you really want to get something out of it, then that's that will depend on you at the end of the day. Um, I can't tell the future for all these games because there's a lot more coming, right? Like a new Blaze Blues coming out near that time too.
There have
Uh,
been rumors about Soul Calibur 6.
yeah, there's rumors of that. But going back to King of Fighters, and I think it's going to be successful in Southern California because we have some of the best players. So, but it has to build like a whole new storyline of like the veterans and the new blood. And that's kind of it's another thing if you want to include it to like the esports world. you're gonna have to build storylines, right? And man, there's just so much work when it comes to community building. It's like like my head is already like trust me, it's one of my projects now, and I'm thinking of that project. Okay, I'm like, God, it's like I'm talking to you, and then one click away, I'm looking at my spreadsheet and schedules, and when the next time King of Fighters is gonna be at Wednesday Night Fights. We're trying to get it back, by the way, but before launch, and where does it go from there? Like we honestly um we don't do much except like show the door to the community. Like here, right? You can
Mhm.
play this game. It'll be right here. It's up to you. We're not gonna go out there and like force people, because you keep forcing the issue to play these games. It looks like we're desperate. It
Mhm.
makes the scene look desperate. That's not what we're about. Remember, like I'm a huge advocate of like just I would rather just play the game that I like and stay with it, and not and you know share that same feeling with everybody else, right? If you People that tend to forcefully play a game usually are the ones saying negative things right away about it. Like, oh, why did I even freaking waste my time playing this game?
Yeah.
Or I should have been stuck in doing this and that. I'm like, all right, we don't need that attitude here. We just want the people that truly love to play whatever game it is. So I really am looking forward to seeing the community, and the more that I see them come out, the more I am going to pursue more opportunities for them. Whether it's helping them fly to other events, to for being a really good player, getting them the tools like headsets, fight sticks, whatever I can, because um, it helps everybody, right? I'm talking to the publishers, I'm talking to developers, the peripheral companies. They go hand in hand. Like, hey, let's promote everything. The event organizer, right? The players, right? A good, healthy ecosystem of things going on, and they get it. Like I have these conversations with sponsors every day. They get it. They're like, I don't have to keep saying the same thing. They know. All right, Alex. Like, what do you got going on? What's like the next thing? Like, all right, let's plan a launch party. Let's plan a exhibitions. Let's plan. Let's get like, who are you partnering with to make to? Are you doing an official stick? Just make it a big party, like make it an excitement, natural excitement, right? They can hear
Right.
it when I have these meetings with them. Like, hey, your game's coming out. We only have this much time to plan. Like, let's get on it. I'm gonna talk to the top players and see what their availabilities are. And gonna have a sick exhibition. We'll have it for like this time slot. You can promote whatever you want. It's like use us as the medium versus, you know, another I'm not gonna name names, but another video game source that doesn't understand what the community wants. They're just like, hey, look, it's a fighting game that I can jump around, hit buttons. No, you're gonna actually have professional freaking dissect your game and showcase why your game is beautiful. So, but
Right.
looking forward to King of Fighters.
Me too. I'm going to take it back away from games for a second. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the Red Bull Proving Ground. So I know that that was something that was recently announced, and there are several different cities, although there are people traveling, from other states as well, pretty much, to come to them as well. But kind of different places all over the United States that are part of this Red Bull Proving Ground. So they have one Street Fighter 5 monthly a month until September is the last one. And then basically the top, I believe it's the top four, right, from each monthly get sent to the Red Bull Proving Grounds finals. And then whoever wins that gets the opportunity for an all expenses paid trip to essentially Capcom Cup, which you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's my understanding on it. So I wanted to ask you, because I know that you are one of the people running it for your area. Um, how has this experience been for your communities so far, and what are you hoping the outcome will be for the FGC as a whole through these events that unite various communities throughout the country?
Okay, the for us independently, we wanted to run a weekend event, like a consistent weekend event, and we I think timing is really important, and we experimented with it last year with SCR Prelude events because SCR got pushed back to a later date, and so there was a huge drought in weekend events. So
Mm-hmm.
we had we planned two Saturday events that was promoting SCR, and wow, that was. I mean, those events were great, but it was just way too much work with too many games. So we went to the drawing back to the drawing board and said, "Hey, if we're gonna run like a weekend event, let's just take it back like Wednesday Night Fights. Let's look at Wednesday Night Fights. We started with Street Fighter 4, just the Street Fighter 4 alone. It would make sense for us to start another flagship consistent event with one game, and let's do it with Street Fighter 5. Then we, had to find a name, and that took another long time, which it was just called Vanguard. I'm like, all right, cool. So we had the plans of doing it, but the timing. So you know, first of we had to kick off Wednesday Night Fights with the launch of Street Fighter 5. It was like the day after, literally, um, but it was too soon to have to launch this monthly. So we were already kind of in discussions with Red Bull about like an idea to kind of, why don't we just not just do this alone and you know have a bigger initiative with more regions around the country to launch this thing. And that totally made sense for us. I mean, wow, yeah, because when we think about something, we think about the big picture and down the road. It's not just a closed knit thing. Like, what can we do? Like Wednesday Night Fights, people around the world watch that. It's crazy how that's been established. So we hope to follow suit with the weekend event. And again, not many weekend events in SoCal, and we have the highest concentration of top Street Fighter players all around. So now that there is, the people that couldn't make it to like Wednesday Night Fights, they can come to Vanguard now, and we definitely want that to grow for those guys and for the regions surrounding, like Mexico, Nevada, even Utah or NorCal. So we can have, at any given month, we'll have a new top player come out from the woodworks, because that's how arcade tournaments were back then, or arcade monthlies. 128-man brackets always filled up. Always have people from Vegas come out. Arizona for sure too. They would come out, like they would make the 4-hour drive to SoCal. Not every month, maybe every other month, and that's kind of, like I still talk to those cats these days. It's been over like 20 years, that they've been going to like these type of things. So, and I remember Jimmy and I had this conversations, like like I hope that these Saturday events can kind of bring back those monthly Southern Hills Golfland tournaments. Like just people that can only play on the weekend, right? Versus just how it is now. Wednesday Night Fights is like man, that a weekly event back then was unheard of. This proving ground events now on the weekend, it's thankfully to Red Bull, it's going to be promoted a lot better. It's not just us doing it, even though we have a pretty decent reach. Red Bull has like all the resources in the world to start promoting stuff, and it helps other communities too, because we're just SoCal, but there's like amazing players in Philly, right? There's good
Oh,
players in
definitely.
Chicago, Atlanta, Seattle, right? And that's what's needed. We all have to think outside the box and start teaming up more. Um, and hopefully the proving grounds is a kickstart to all of this, right? Maybe like if it goes on for next year, maybe more regions will be involved, and just it gets bigger and bigger, right? I mean, we have nothing to lose here at this point. We're just teaming up and hoping for the best as long as we execute it right. So and um, this is a good and also a good alternative for players that can't afford to go to majors or just don't have the time or whatnot. Because the majors are not like in the same location; they're all around the world at different times, and it gets really expensive. And we also start need to reach out to the youth that plays, right?
Hmm.
And they can't make the weeknights. They can like this, for instance, this kid that goes to Wednesday night fights. His name is Tatsu Shoryu, right? He's a very young Dalsum player. He's like 15 or 14 years old, and I meet with his dad every week, and goes to well, now it's summertime, so he's been going, but he goes, "Hey, Alex, hey man, thank you for holding these events." And yeah, I bring my boy all the time. I'm like, the Dalsum player, dude, I love that kid. That kid is the future. Please, thank you for bringing him all the time, man. Like, because it just reminds me when I was his age. Like, I love these things. I love kicking people's ass. Like in the beginning of this show, I was talking to you about it, and
Yeah.
it just brings me back. And if we can get more of those, like at any one of these events, and we've done it right.
Definitely. I think one of the great things about this new Red Bull Proving Grounds and being able to have, different communities be a part of it is it gives players who don't, you go to a major and you've got hundreds and hundreds of players there, and you have some of the best players coming out from all over the world. And it can be very difficult for an up and coming player who might be really good in a local scene and win local tournaments or get in top three at local tournaments to actually win a major at that point. So I think one of the things that this gives is it gives kind of up and coming players who do well in the local communities that, have a little more difficulty in the majors, the opportunity to actually, get a chance to make it to something like, the Capcom Pro Tour finals, which is something that's a really difficult thing to get, especially if, you do place in the locals, but you have difficulty, placing at a much larger event. And I think that that's a great thing, allowing the players who might not get the opportunity at the larger events get the opportunity to compete for points to still essentially get the opportunity to compete at Capcom, which is what so many players right now who are competing in Street Fighter V they want. They want that opportunity. And even in Philly, I mean, we saw players travel from all different states down to Philly. They're like, it's only a couple hours. We're gonna go down there. We're gonna do it because they want that opportunity. They want that chance to go. So, I would love to see it be so successful this year that they do it again next year and start adding more and more communities so that we essentially all unite together as one big country working together to help players be successful, which is so far it seems to be doing pretty well. So I want to bring it over to another event. Just recently, you announced that you were going to be at First Attack in
Yes.
Puerto Rico. You were very excited about it. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about how this came to be and what you'll be doing at the events.
Okay. So thanks for bringing it up. First Attack Puerto Rico, man. It's an event. Well, it's First Attack PR. Um, it's an event organized by eSports Puerto Rico, and one of the main organizers of the event is an old school Third Strike player, old school Street Fighter player in general, Mr. Mono. He is from, he's played some of his rivals. If you heard, of PR Balrog and all those guys. So he has history of some of the best players nowadays. Um, yeah, so he hits me up one day, and we're just talking, and like talking about First Attack, and I'm like, dude, you guys have a sick event, because I remember watching Infiltration and Snake Eyes. They look like they had the times of their lives. Like they're like at a vacation. Like the tournament is one thing, but they look like they're ready to explore the islands and shit. I'm like, dude, this is. I just see the smiles in people's faces. Like in certain tournaments, they're like super serious, right? They're like nervous and serious, and then other tournaments you see them, they're just cheesing the entire way. I just can't wait. All right, the tournament's cool, I win my thing and I collect my money and go. But it's like a vacation spot. So he goes, hey, Ed, so um, he asked if like how does it work for promotions on Wednesday Night Fights? And I'm like, oh, well, we have certain packages like promotional packages, and I'm like, you know what? Let's cut to the chase. I think we can make this a much better experience. Let's make a ranking qualification for the winner to from you can get our best player to fly over to first attack. I think that will generate the hype. We're constantly talking about it every week. I mean, you'll get one of our best, and some of our like Chris Tatarian, he just won, but like this was a conversation about like almost 3 months ago. So like we're just kind of like seeing what would be a best outcome to truly promote the event. Throwing slides up there here and there, that's like the bread and butter. But to bring excitement to two communities, that's a whole brand new thing, right? We got our guys excited about getting a chance to fly to Puerto Rico, and then after that is done, which is just finished, Christopher Tutarian, he won. Um, the process of us going there and the Puerto Rican community is going to be stoked getting to play both of us. I'm going to fly out there as a mentor and coach to Chris, but I mean, I can still play, and I'm just gonna go over there and meet the PR community. So is Chris, and we're gonna just play all weekend long. I've never been to Puerto Rico, so it's gonna be really exciting to go. It's the way they say it. It's a vacation tournament. It's a vacation destination. It's during Labor Day, September 3rd and 4th. So like they're trying to promote like just players that if they want to spend a weekend, a vacation-esque type of tournament, this is a place to go. There's so many tournaments out there that's just hotel and traditional style, right? But it's not really a vacation. It's just like to some it's not a like I want to go to the beach. I want to do this and that and go zip lining and so many activities that they to provide. Or you can go to a traditional tournament where you're just in a hotel, and there are still amazing tournaments, but it's just that you don't get the extra attractions.
Right.
So and I think this model of promotions is at least works best in both for both communities, as I said before. Promoting our players and getting them over there, getting their community excited, and so hopefully we can do this every year. And I know I've dabbled with this a bit last year on when I had Wednesday Night Fights online. We sent the winners to like an SCR, Evo, and the Fall Classic and Final Round. So I'm like, okay, this brought excitement to our players, and it brought more hype. And I know the Stream Monsters were happy to see SoCal players make it to like top 8. Like, almost everyone that got invited made it to top 8 or at least top 16 from Wednesday Night Fights. It was pretty cool.
Well, that's good. I will definitely keep my eye out when I watch the stream, see if I can see you there in Puerto Rico. I've only been to Puerto Rico once. I was 14. I went on a cruise
Oh,
with my
you went?
family.
Oh.
Yeah, when I was 14. It was beautiful. From what I remember, it was an absolutely beautiful little island. I think I still have some I don't want to say artifact.
Artifact.
What am I?
Is that what we call it these days?
No, no, I can't. I'm trying to think of like souvenirs. There we go.
Souvenir. Here we go.
That is the word I meant. I still have some souvenirs somewhere, like from that cruise. I think we had gone to like the Bahamas as well, and to St. Thomas, and some little private island off of Haiti. So I still have some stuff from there that I kept. But you'll definitely have a good time. I want to go back as an adult, just because when you're a kid, you're kind of limited to
Of course.
what you can do when you're when you're an adult. You can drink naturally. So
Thuggery.
okay, no, I'm so gangsta. It's okay, but anyway, moving on. I just have two more questions here before I'm gonna open it up and let the stream asked some questions for us. But the next topic I wanted to talk to you about is something that's still going on, and there's a lot of talk about it, and that is the FGC's transition into esports,
Yeah.
which has pretty much rapidly been happening, let alone just in this past year. And it kind of started near the tail end of last year, just rapidly growing as well. Um, so I wanted to ask, what are your views on the FGC's kind of rapid transition into esports? Do you do you think that we can get to the level of where Call of Duty and the Halo tournaments are at? And what do you think still needs to improve in the FGC in order for this transition to be successful and not as kind of chaotic as it is at the moment?
Wow, that's a loaded question too. Okay. Wow, this is mm, one of our you know working with the co-founders at Level Up, like we made a an obvious choice of what type of broadcasts we want to present, right? And in the beginning, nobody really cared for the professionalism and stuff like that. They didn't really care for like, oh, the suit and tie thing, and like, oh, why can't we just keep it raw and keep it raw? I mean, we're still the same people. We still play for the same team, like we're part of the community. But
Right.
like everybody just really didn't didn't like that yet, right?
Mhm.
And you can see it as years went by, people started to kind of clean up what they would say because yeah, stuff got on to media outlets. You can't talk about like you can't say like rape and racism you can't just constantly be that raw. So, people are gonna take offense to that, and it's like then those are gimmick type of conversations, just to rowdy the stream monsters. Yeah, it's entertaining and fun, but after a while it gets really old. So you actually have to really focus on what you're presenting here, like the game, the players, the atmosphere, the sponsors, which we didn't really have at the time.
Right.
Couple more years started to go by. More now, sponsors are kind of like, okay, we want to be a part of this, and the sponsors are kind of at that time like they didn't know what they were getting into. Like there was just really bad misrepresentation of their products into some of these events. Like with people still trying to keep it raw and drinking alcohol on a broadcast. So the growing pains of the fighting game community of Street Fighter when Street Fighter 4 broadcasts were out there, they were there, and we made that choice not to do that. And that's why these days we're able to, you know, have a lot of these partners
Mhm.
that really see what we're trying to do for the future, right? Because they don't want their brands affiliated with certain stuff like that, and it's
Right.
just it catches up to people. And yeah, the community is kind of like figuring out that this is actually the progression that it needs to go. The people that are trying to hold it back are the ones that just they don't really care for any of it, and that's not fair to the majority of people that are trying to make this like a successful transition. Like the publishers, they're obviously they're dependent on people buying the game. If it's fun, the sponsors, of course, their products like to play with these games, right?
Mhm.
And for those that are just kind of like, hey, I wanted to keep it raw. Okay, cool. You know what? There's places for you to do that. You can make your stream, keep it raw, do your thing. But the day that you ask, or the day that you ask for sponsors and start crying about you don't get any support, you know what you did. You know what you did, and doesn't necessarily mean we're like the whole esports movement. Like I don't really care for the name, right? I don't. You don't see me wearing a suit and tie to these things, okay? Like I'm still who I am. Yeah, I cleaned up my act a bit, but we're progressing. We're progressing.
Right.
Our commentators are getting much better. Like they don't have to curse up a storm anymore. They have a lot of cool catchphrases now, right? And they have good
Hmm.
followings. They have their own shows. The overlays are getting better, right? The equipment, people are getting better cameras and more shots, right? The organization of all this stuff is getting better, and that's part of what esports is, and the organization teaming up with like the whole Capcom Cup initiative is an esports initiative, right? They're aligning the grassroots tournaments together. Like we're all part of this huge league, right? That's the term. It's a
Hmm.
league. It's a circuit to to crown the victor at the end, right? Before it
Hmm.
was so fragmented. Like there was no unity. It was like, oh, my event's better, that event is better, and even though that talk is still going on these days, but it's not as bad as before. Like everybody's trying to like one up themselves, um, when they should have just thought about how to make their own event better
Right.
and just be humble about it, and just let their actions speak for themselves. They don't really have to constantly be out there. And I know it sounds like Jabali, but that guy throws a hell of an event. I'm not trying to like just fire shots at him. That's his persona, and it works for him. So and hats off to him and his events. Hats off to Big E, um, Larry, Rick, all the big players and pillars of the community that they've run these events for years, and they've been doing it um, so long and getting feedback from the community, and they know that esports and this whole movement it's it's been coming for a long time now, and whether the community accepts it or not, it only means for a bigger and brighter future. Like there is going to be a lot more exposure and money involved, right? And you're going to want to see your players live off this stuff versus
Exactly.
versus having them, you know, yeah, they can work their 9 to 5, but they won't be the player that they want to be. Like they can imagine, there's only still a handful of players that do this full time. Others, they have to work. They have to work. They have to find money. They have to hustle. Like they have to hustle, and you can tell, and they're trying so hard, but their performance is not there. We want to see these guys in tip-top shape so the game looks better. Like let's
Hmm.
just say, here's a good example: the Street Fighter Five. Before CEO, it was like even the tournaments were kind of like, excluding me. I like to watch. I currently still like to watch all the Street Fighter Five events. I think they're all cool, but the rest, a lot of the community, they didn't really care for how it looked because the whole 8 frame things. Oh, Street Fighter 4 is more hype. Blah blah blah. CEO comes around, then the game looks more defined, like the gameplay where it's at now. Now it's looking a lot more interesting. People were really excited how like Daigo is playing, how Takedo is playing. Infiltration finally lost. Story, right? Like I said before, these storylines are starting to build. Right?
And I
And,
think it's just something that needs to take some time.
yeah,
It just, we need to let the game speak for itself over, the first year. It's very hard to gather, as you said, stories in the first month or two because so many people are still, still trying to learn the game and get used to it. So once you kind of have the people who are winning in the beginning and once they start to fall, then it starts to get, more interesting because you start seeing new people kind of pop in there. And of course, the players learn uh, more moves and techniques and things that they didn't learn before. So it's more flashy and it's more interesting to watch and so forth. But one of, sorry, go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, the whole esports thing, guys. Like, you can produce any type of show you want. Let me tell you, like, I've experimented and dabbled with the worst type of show. And that was, well, it's not a worst type of show. It was an experiment to see how raw we can go, and that was the grudge match. And we went as raw as possible. We've, cursed up a storm, and it was all for entertainment purposes. Like we just let it rip. It was live and direct. I know everybody saw the low tier god and Viscant thing. So we have documented broadcasts that we can go as raw and nasty as we want, and it was still entertaining. But are are we gonna sell that to the right places? Probably not yet. No, because our focus is in kind of making our core tournaments more accessible and inclusive to the viewer at home. Like, hey, that's a place I can take my kids to. And I'm
Hmm.
telling you, every Wednesday I have families that come out and they either shake my hand and introduce me to their kids. They even bring their dogs to Wednesday night fights. Okay, so
Really?
I'm telling you, yes, yes. Like, there's this family that comes. And I'm thinking in my mind, wow, you're kind of bad parenting, bringing your kids late at night. But no, it was like they had some time off. But anyways, they came out and they wanted to show support. They saw Wednesday night fights and they thought, oh, this looks really neat. Everybody's just cool and having a good time. And those are the things that you got to think about. I'm a little bit older now, and you guys are watching it are young. All you guys care about is like the now, who you're playing with, who looks cool, and all the little trendy stuff. But you're not thinking about the big picture outside your bubble. Like, if you would like to see more people, it starts with the families because the families have to let their kids go to these things,
No, and
right?
yeah, and let me tell you something.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I mean, and believe it or not, this what like I'm probably a lot older than most people, but I'm not like, I'm 28, so I'm not like super ridiculously old, but I was around in a period of time when it wasn't popular. In fact, it was not like socially acceptable
Oh,
to play
uh,
video games. And there was no way you would have the, like, I didn't have these tournaments as a kid to go to. In fact, you either had to be with the gang or that was it. You were on your own to play video games. It was pretty much what what I was when I was a kid.
like,
I played them with I played games all the time by myself. I never played with anybody else unless you had, eventually with like Pokemon, they had like the link that you could do. But I mean, nowadays you can play Pokemon and you can trade Pokemon, in another country. But then, you had to be next to each other. I mean, that's pretty much how all games were when I was a kid. And, I think that it's difficult for some families that come in because they sometimes don't necessarily like some of the people appreciate, you know, where the gaming community, has gotten to. But if you go back and you look in, say, the 90s, which is pretty much when it actually started to progress and, slowly grow. You had the first PlayStation, you had the first Xbox, you had the first, handheld Nintendo systems that were coming out, and the GameCubes and things like that. And those systems were almost kind of like the driving force to what everybody has now. And I remember when I heard that there was this was like back in I think 2012. I found out about the fighting game community, and I found that there were streams and tournaments, and I was like, really? And I was fascinated by it in the beginning because I didn't have that, and I always wanted something like that, but it just didn't exist. And that's kind of essentially how I got into it at the time. But and that's kind of what I strive for now, is helping to bring in new players and helping to create opportunities for everybody that essentially I didn't have, because I don't want anybody to ever feel like they're not accepted in that community. And that's kind of what this community was to me. It was a community where I could be myself. I could enjoy playing video games. I could enjoy playing fighting games. I could be a nerd. I could be whatever I wanted, and it was acceptable. But when you were a kid back then, it wasn't something that was acceptable. And in fact, as you got older, it was frowned upon if you kept playing it. Okay, you're not a kid anymore. You can't play video games anymore. When I was 18, my mom said, "What do you want for Christmas?" I said, "A Nintendo DS." And she goes, "Don't you think you're a little too old for that?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "No." And she goes, "Okay, if that's really what you want." And she's one of my biggest fans now. But I had to literally show her. I had to sit her down when I started getting involved and literally show her piece by piece and explain it in order for her to even remotely understand. It's very difficult. So, I think that's one of the biggest issues as well is kind of educating the current gaming community on how we got to where we are now.
Mm. Yeah, you're definitely right. This we had a huge stigma about video games waste of time. It still is today. It's just not widely accepted. Um, Especially like just your parents don't see money coming out of this, right? They just see like it's a huge waste. Even though like you can still argue, well, look at League of Legends and Dota. The parents are smart enough to know like, hey, look, that's only a very small fraction of people, and for you to devote X amount of years to become that, like it's not even guaranteed that you'll be at that level, and that's pretty rough. Like they're right. Like versus you have something guaranteed to like, well, nah, I can't even say guaranteed anymore, but if you choose to, follow through your school's studies, get a part-time job somewhere, do it the traditional way, that will bring more certainty to your family because
Right.
you'll learn, you know, that you're out there, you're learning a trade skill somewhere while going to school and defining like what you want to do with this trade skill, right?
Mhm.
um, and that's really hard to argue. You can like if a parent came up to me, like that's one of the things they're gonna come up to me and they're gonna tell me like, yeah, you know what? I understand there's $1 million prize pools at these events. Do you think my kid can win? What am I gonna say? Yeah, sure. They put the time. Like, sure. Versus like if he gets a job right now at McDonald's, he's guaranteed money. He or she is guaranteed to make some money and goes to school and learn while you're over there shooting people and not learning anything except like what the game does. I'm like, damn, what can I possibly say to that? Actually, there is some things I can say um, that it's not really look, Mr. or Mrs. whatever Smith. Um, if they truly love video games, right? They may not know down the road that uh, their end goal is not just to be the best at this game. They may end up wanting to design one. They may end up wanting to start writing about it, or drawing, promoting. These are trade skills that are developed through playing versus, oh, you're forcing your kid to do something that you like or that
Right.
you're used to. So
Mhm.
you got to have an open mind. You know, it's a two-way street. You got to really ask your kid what they really want, what brings joy to them, right? And a lot of people like who are talking in the panel, they're here trying to get that information. Like, what can I possibly say to motivate them to become a better player, to pursue opportunities in the industry, and just have at it. And that's probably why you're here too. Like, what's so special about these games? Well, I'm trying to tell you. Hopefully one day I'll win that battle, but we'll see.
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the points I was bringing it up is because every tournament I go to now, I'm starting to see more and more parents with kids. And I see it online. More and more parents are actually starting to support their kids wanting to go to tournaments and playing. And I think that that's such a great thing. I've had conversations with some of them at major tournaments, and they tell me they're like, I'm just trying to support my kid and what he loves to do. And, I think this is great. Thank you for providing this opportunity. This is the one thing that makes him happy. And so I think that it's great that we're now in a society where more and more parents are actually willing to, do it for their kids and not necessarily kind of almost have that stereotype where no, it's not accepted. You can't do that. This is just for fun. And you're like, but I don't want it to be just for fun. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but the next question I have before I open it up to the stream and let them ask a couple questions, it's going to be about 4 questions, guys. Um, what is your advice for new and up and coming players in the FGC?
New and upcoming players in FGC. Well, play the game that you love, like love at first sight. You got to play it like that. Don't even, try to become a competitive pro player yet. Just, have that natural bond with that game.
Right.
From there, it will take over. I promise you, because the more you're curious about the game, you can't just let that go. And then you'll want to get better at it, and you'll want to be good. You'll want to show off, and all of these attribute to like eventually becoming a competitor. You're not a competitor yet, but you will be if you go that way. Casual players, they'll play and they're like, oh, that's cool, it's fun. All right, we're done, and then you don't really love the game. You just kind of passing time.
Hmm.
So just remember to love the game, or like just enjoy what you're playing. And then when you're becoming a competitor, you got to put in that work. And that work, if you want to take it to the next level, and let me tell you, it's just like a 9 to 5. You want to start winning tournaments, well, you got to put yourself in a regimen. I used to play 8 to 10 hours a day in an arcade, right? I'd just go in there and put my first quarter up. I don't see anybody there. I play computer. That was my training. Play computers to, practice whatever combos that I could figure out in my head, what I would dream about the night before. I may be at that, me and a handful of others dreaming about stuff and then doing it the next day. So, like when you get to that level, you know that this is for you. So, but it's really fun. Like you'll meet a lot. Oh yeah, very important. Meet new people. As much as you like to,
Definitely.
as much as you like to play, on your own, this is about beating that ass. So when some of those people that you hate or you can't beat or whatever, they end up being like your good friends some down the line,
Hmm.
because you just start exploring. Man, this guy is an asshole. I can't beat this guy, and he's taunting you and stuff. And then after like a month or even a week of beatdowns, you finally like start to message and like, hey man, are you on? Like you know what's funny is like you hate somebody so much that you lose to or whatnot, or you think they're good, and you friend them. You,
You,
you
you,
friend them.
yeah.
Yeah, you friend them, and that's man. Even like
You secretly watch what they do, and you're like,
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
I can pick off from that, and then
yes,
when I
yes,
have to play them in tournament, now I know what to watch out for.
absolutely. So get your starters from that, and then from there, of course, watch streams, go to tournaments. Um,
Even local tournaments,
Oh,
I'll add
local
that in there.
tournaments, all yeah, if you have local tournaments, because nowadays local tournaments are really tough to find, unless you live in like a heavily concentrated Street Fighter or fighting game area.
I'll be honest, not if you live in the Northeast. I can tell you I get invites to maybe 10, 15 local tournaments going on in the Northeast area. It's insane. I mean, just in this where I live in, it's there's locals everywhere. In fact, it's a little too
That's
much.
just the Northeast. There's players that take. I mean, we got to think of like 2 to 3 hours out, and like a lot of them don't have transportation yet,
Yeah.
or they just it's a hardship, right? So
Yeah.
that's why online rules everything. At least here in the states, like they either if they can't afford to come out to locals, that's okay. If you can't go, don't feel bad. Just do what you can at home, and find an opportunity. Maybe save up to one of these things. Um, I know people don't like to hear like, oh, I just can't afford it. Don't feel bad. It's a struggle. No, we all know. Yeah, we just want to play games, and now we have to pay extra to get to these things. And I get it. Beat some
Right.
ass online, record that match, and show it off. That brings extreme pleasure too. So,
Exactly. So now I'm gonna kind of open it up and let you guys in the stream chat ask some questions. Due to time, I am gonna limit the amount of questions down to two, maybe three, depending on how many questions I get. But two for now. Okay, let's see. Some of these we already talked about earlier, so I don't want to ask them again.
Talking about tier lists, huh?
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking about
Oh, I mean,
You
I
know
can,
what? You know what? Yeah, you know what? Let's.
I can dabble. Okay.
So the question is, do you feel there is a difference between tier lists and actual character usage, as far as what characters are best or good? For example, Chun-Li is said to be at the top of the tier list, yet we don't see her a lot in top eights or grand finals like we see Nash, Ryu, Ken, Karen, etc. Your views, Alex?
Ah, um, I think Chun-Li is at the top for sure. I think she's probably the best character in the game. Um, and it is kind of weird that even though she's the best character, she doesn't win a lot of the events or hardly places top eight. I think when it's at the higher level, it anything can happen. Um, I think she's just like I would say she's the scrub killer of the game. Um, she focuses so much on uh, controlling the neutral space, and you can't jump on her at all. She's got good ground normals. But when you play somebody that kind of can read what you're doing, she is a little bit limited because her damage output isn't like the best during these scramble situations versus
Mm-hmm.
like a Ken that jumps in once, a Mika that jumps in once, a Ryu that can actually go toe to toe, and then he has meter, and oh, you have to worry about it. So there's a lot of there's a lot of ways other characters can kind of just beat her straight out when it's at the highest level. Like Hallie's, he does just a ridiculous amount of damage. The people that we see lose a lot are the ones that can't control their neutral space. They always want to jump in. They always want to do this and that, and Chun Li prevents all. That's how Chun Li wins. Chun Li wins from people playing too uh, too carelessly, and we see it. We clearly see it. So that's why she's like considered the scrub killer. But in the right hands, oh man, she's still hard to beat too. So, but
It's those
it,
legs.
yeah, well, it's nice thighs. But this can go through like any version of Street Fighter. There's overpowered characters in all Street Fighters, right? But they don't always necessarily win, and that's due to the higher level play.
Right.
So that's my answer to that.
We have another question here. What are your plans to make so-called regionals unique from other Capcom Pro Tour Premier events in the USA?
Oh, you already want me to talk about SCR without announcing the lineup or the location?
I mean, you don't have to if you don't want
I,
to,
I
since it has, since
or
it
like
hasn't been
even
done yet. But
yeah. So huh. Okay. Well, at least I got some feedback here. So he wants to see a unique experience from other premieres. Like, is it just going to be another tournament? Well, the tournament that part will be intact, but it just depends on the atmosphere, I would say. Um, some of the things that we've experienced in the past, like SCR last year, it was really good, but it wasn't super hype. I think we were at like the tail end of the pro tour, and people just wanted to see like the pro tour, right?
right,
Um, we had so many premiere events that happened before us during Ultra Street Fighter 4 that seeing them again at our event and then um at Canada Cup kind of like, all right, we've seen this. Like it just kind of got saturated. So there's some things there that we have to look at to make sure that if it's a presentation thing that can help, with standing out, then maybe that's what we'll work on. Um, maybe the lineup, but it's really hard to just kind of like straight say, hey, you know what? We're gonna just throw SCR on a boat. We're gonna throw it on a yacht. You know, that's good. That's as
Yeah.
unique as we get. We're like, oh my god, it's so hype. No, we're not. We're not gonna do that. Like we gotta really,
No SoCal regionals on a cruise.
you know, not yet. Maybe down the road. Maybe if people want it, that would be sick. I don't know. But anyways,
I'd go. I'd find a way to make it work.
maybe. But uh, I am gonna stick to the roots and you know, without giving too much away, just um, at least at this aspect, I can say that less is more. I think we've tried to reach for the stars too many times, like having over 20 something games. I don't think that's necessary anymore when like we have new games coming out, right?
Right.
And
Hmm.
so that's um, probably a feature that's not going to really hurt the event more than taking care of the core uh, popular titles. So um, and I think the location and the lineup is pretty solid this year. I can say that the announcement is going to be really soon, and hopefully you will see a unique experience. So,
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that announcement. All right, guys. So since I'm feeling generous because I just got back from an amazing vacation in Florida for the last week and a half, I will allow one more question. So
oh no,
go ahead and rumble on a boat. That'd be cool.
you have to worry about a lot of factors if it's on a boat. I'll tell you that.
And they were saying like, all right, this guy keeps asking questions, so this is a fun one. So I'm just gonna say it anyway. So if a lion and a shark fight, who wins, Alex? Who wins in that fight?
Okay, I would. All right, check this out. It depends on it depends on the terrain.
What?
It depends.
Oh, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah. What stage are
Oh.
we at? See? Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he wasn't thinking that far ahead.
All right, so let me ask you the question. Are the lion and shark fighting in the ocean or are they fighting on land? I'm
Uh-huh.
asking you that question. That question. Jesus, it's been such a long day. That question, A4 Andre.
I see. Now he's got nothing to say. He's got nothing to say. Huh? You weren't expecting that one.
All
Mhm.
right, so I.
Oh, they're fighting on the moon.
Oh.
On the moon? Nobody wins. They're dead. Nobody wins. It's a stalemate. It's a stalemate. Boom. He was not ready. Am I excited for Thong Urian?
Yeah,
Yo,
yeah.
Thong Urian is
I,
not even in the game right now. It's only business suit Urian.
I don't know. I mean, you never know. Maybe it'll be an
Well,
alternate
down the road,
costume.
yeah. At least for what's announced. I'm ready for the banana hammock. The solid loin cloth. I'm ready. Yeah, but we shall see.
All right. Well, all right. I'll do one more question because I'm still. Oh my gosh. Okay, one more. I swear this is one more. So stop with all the questions. Is there an old arcade story that you could tell us?
Uh, wow. An old arcade story. That would take a while. Let me see. Mm-hmm.
I could always move on to another question if it's.
Yeah, those tend to take a long time to tell.
So, which character do you want to see return that hasn't been announced?
Okay, there we go. That's a good question. Okay. Um, I would love to see Geki.
Really?
Yeah. Street Fighter 1. I heard he's dead, but so was Goken.
I want Oro.
He's coming back.
That
He's
has
hundred.
not been confirmed
He's
yet. He's
he's hundred
only been in
percent.
the pre
He's
thingy
100%. You know why he's coming back?
because they teased him in the
So
little
it's not
pre-game
just
thing.
a tease. You know the lore, right?
Yeah,
So
that's why I have hope that he's coming back. But you
so
know what? I also want T-Hawk. T-Hawk is my main in two other Street Fighter
T-Hog.
games. Yes, he's my main. Well, he was my main in Turbo and Street Fighter 4. Don't get your heads down. It's not coming back up. It's down.
Yeah. Well, if not Geki, I would like to see 12 come back. It would fit perfectly in Street Fighter 5.
I would dig 12 or Necro.
Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty sure all the Third Strike characters are gonna make their appearance.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Don't tell me T-Hawk is not dead. Hush, James. He's not dead yet. All right, so I have one last question that I am actually going to ask you, and it is my fun signature question. If you could be one superhero and one fighting game character, who would it be and why?
Ah, man. Really? Okay.
Yeah, really?
All right. Well, even though he is boring as hell personality-wise, but if I was that character, Superman number one, and then as a fighting game character,
Yeah.
shit. Well, I mean, Superman is a fighting game character, and he was OP as shit in Injustice. But no,
Yeah, but is he going to be in Injustice 2?
yeah, he is Injustice too.
No, I said is he going to be OP in Injustice 2 the way he
Oh,
was?
oh yeah, probably. Warner Brothers probably said, "Hey, you know, the Death of Superman movie coming out. You got to make him like OP again." No. Um, let's see. As a character, who the hell is even? It's really rough. I wouldn't say Ryu. Come on, that is boring as hell. I just throw fireballs. There's characters that can do so many crazy things out there. Man, that is a. You know, I never really thought of myself as a fighting game character. Kind of stumped me there, actually. Because I play like a million fighting games, so I'm going through 20 years of fighting games right now. So, um, gosh,
Well, what's the one character that really like resonated with you?
ah, let's see.
There's a long list of those two.
There is a super long list. You know what? I'm just for the fun of it, I'm just gonna say Bison. You know why?
No, why?
Because he's got the 12 dolls all up on his business, and they kill for him, right? They kill
Yeah.
for. And I got the psycho power if anybody wants to mess with me. All the kings, the three kings, bow down to this guy. Yeah, there you go, Bison. Done.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to chat with me tonight. Are there any shout outs that you'd like to give?
Of course, shout outs to everybody watching, and uh, you know, if you guys want to tune in to weekly events, Wednesday Night Fights on our Level Up Live channel on Twitch, Vanguards, typically every month, but the next one is on July 30th. That would also be on Level Up Live in eSports Arena, and you guys should be hearing very, very soon of the SoCal Regionals 2016 news. So, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you guys again for tuning in on the stream. I really appreciate it. I will be uploading everything to YouTube tonight. But I really want to thank you guys for asking all the questions and for sticking it out for pretty much 2 hours and chatting with us. So, thank you again. Please follow me on Twitch and on Twitter and, well, Facebook and everywhere because I'm everywhere. And I hope you guys have a great night. and
All right.
I will see y'all again soon.
Take care, guys.